July wrap-up. Almost said August. Nope, July. I read 7 books this month, and all but one of them was an ebook. I'm also currently reading a book that I've been reading like almost the whole month. It's just not completely working for me. Also, I feel like I've been kind of in like a romancy mood for the most part. So like true romance, not just like a young adult book with a romance in it, but like a real romance novel, like a traditional romance novel. First was the book that I believe I said I was in the process of reading when I filmed my June wrap up, and that was Haunted by Meg Cabot, which is the 5th book in the Mediator series. I did finish this and I gave it 4 stars. I liked it. I like this series. However, I have not read the 6th one yet. I really need to do it. No excuses. And this is the one physical book I have read. The rest of the books I read, write all of them? Yes, we're all on Overdrive, and which I talked about last month. So I did get a Lauren Lane like ebook bind up almost of her Sex, Love, and Stiletto series. I think that's what it's called. I feel like the series should be called Stiletto because there's a spin-off series called Oxford, and they're about magazines, Oxford and Stiletto. But that's a personal issue. So the first one, and I read them in order, but the first one and the next book I read was After the Kiss by Lauren Lane, and I gave it 4 stars. This one has like a very How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days feel, so it's basically about, she's a reporter, or like are they still reporters? She writes for a magazine. A writer, I guess would be the right word. And she and her friends all basically write. The series is about a group of friends, girlfriends, who all write for a Cosmo type magazine. So she does a story about falling in love or staying in love. I can't completely remember, but she gets this story that she has to do. So she ends up finding this guy and picks him for her story, and then he asks her out as like part of a bet. And so that's why I say it has kind of like a How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days feel, and I could not stop thinking about that throughout the whole book, which is probably the only reason it got down to 4 stars. But it was a cute story. I like them as a couple. It's very fun, fairly lighthearted. And actually, really quick before I go on to the next book, because it's sort of related, I recently started watching The Bold Type on Freeform. I hate the name of that channel. I really do. Freeform is, ABC Family wasn't great, but Freeform is worse. And I feel like that book, or that show, because it's supposed to be based on like the women of Cosmo, which I feel like I just said in a very like judgy way, and I'm not judging. I've never really read Cosmo, but you do you. And it's about 3 good friends, and I think that's part of it, is it's about 3 friends, and then there's like another magazine that's, I guess, kind of like GQ maybe is what they're going for, which is like Oxford in these books. And it feels a lot like these books. Like they have some similar storylines, which I'm sure is just coincidental, but it's like really hard not to compare them. And I was going to read the next book in that series because I enjoyed it and everything, plus I love like sequel baity books, and female friendship and everything. And then I got an email that one of my holds was available, and that was Murder of Crows by Anne Bishop. So of course I had to read it. Unfortunately, I picked this up on a day when I had to work the next day, and yeah, I picked it up with the intention of just reading like a few chapters, or started reading, picked whatever, you know what I mean. Because the first book had taken a while for me to like really get invested in it. No, I read this in one sitting. I have not read a book in one sitting in forever. I wrote in my review, which I'm not sure if it's up yet or not, that I was like pissed when I had to go to the bathroom, because I was like, I have to stop reading to go to the bathroom. This is horrible. I loved this. I gave it 5 stars, and naturally my library doesn't have the next book available either, so I have a hold on that, and I've been waiting for weeks, and it's still not off hold. And the longest you can have a book out, especially in Overdrive, because they just automatically get returned after 3 weeks, is 3 weeks. and I'm pretty sure I'm like the only person on the hold list, so like what the hell? And it's not available from either my local library or the New York Public Library. And like I'm about to go put a hold on it at New York Public Library just to see which one I'll get first, because I need to read it. But then I know I'm gonna have to do the same thing for the next one. Like part of me kind of wants to just go buy them. Then I read Love the One You're With, also by Lauren Lane, which is the second book in this series. And this is my favorite. I gave it 4 stars, but it's my favorite one out of this series. This is about Grace, who she's like the relationships girl at Stiletto, and she catches her long-term boyfriend cheating on her, and so she's kind of like in this crazy headspace. And then her editor asks her to write an article about or no, it's like her, Stiletto and Oxford are going to do a like battle of the sexes. Like, can they, like, who's better at judging what the other person like wants and needs out of like, you know, a date, and how you interpret what happened on a date and everything. And so she ends up having to do this story alongside with one of Oxford's writers, Jake. I just really liked this one. It was very cute, and it was fun, and it was interesting. And sometimes Lauren Lane's books don't go enough into the male character POV for me, and this one had a little bit more of that, and it was just like a really fun, cute story. Like this one was super easy to see as a potential like romantic comedy, like a true straight up romantic comedy novel, like, or novel movie. And I just really liked it, and I think they're my favorite couple too. That's probably another reason why. And then I read the third book, which was Just One Night by Lauren Lane, obviously. And this one is about Riley, who is like the sex girl at Stiletto, and a lot of her writing is all made up, but people don't know that. And she has had a long-time crush on her brother's best friend, Sam, and she's asked to write a more personal article for her story, for this one issue of the magazine. And she ends up taking that as an opportunity to like pursue her feelings with this guy. I gave this one 3 stars. I thought it had a lot of potential that it didn't quite live up to. Additionally, I've said this before, I'm not a huge fan of unrequited love stories. Now, this one was a little different because he actually is attracted to her as well and has been for like the same amount of time, but has just always stayed away. But unrequited love stories always feel a little forced to me and just always leave me a little like uncomfortable, I guess is like the best way to say it. I don't know. It was still a good story, and I have no major complaints. It just didn't completely work for me. And then I read the 4th book in this series, which is called The Trouble with Love, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is definitely that book that like throughout the whole series, almost you're basically like waiting for it. This follows Emma, who's like the new girl to the group, and then Cassidy, I think his first name's Alex, I'm not sure, but she calls him Cassidy, and he is actually the editor-in-chief of that Oxford magazine, and they actually like just happened to end up working like in the same building for the same company, but in college were a couple and were even engaged, but then ended up splitting up, and now they're kind of thrown back together. And I'm definitely a huge fan of the reunited lovers story, which that's what this is. They also have some of that like anger, bitter fighting kind of thing, which I'm a fan of. So this one had me written all over it. It's still a good book, it's just not my favorite. My big issue with this one is it ended a little abruptly for me, especially without an epilogue. Lord knows I love me an epilogue, especially in my romance. And then the last book I read this month, was in like a weird place, and I looked online to see if I could get any new adult books, and I decided to pick this one up, and that is, Until Friday Night by Abby Glines. And this actually, well, I guess it is new adult-ish because it does have like sex and stuff in it, but I wouldn't consider it like traditional new adult, maybe more like young adult with some mature themes and content. I ended up giving this 2 stars. I just finished this today. I really considered it giving it 3 stars, but like the issues with it that I had, I felt were strong enough to give it 2 stars. I am not Abby Glines' biggest fan, and this one didn't even have like all of the soap opera nonsense that usually is what gets me hooked into this. It took me actually a long time to read it, which is very unusual, especially for an Abby Glines book. But it's very much one of her books, you know, like there's slut shaming and the heroine is like perfect and innocent and saves the guy. Although the heroine does push back on his possessive actions for like a hot minute, which then like basically caves again anyways. I think I will read the other books in this series, at least the 3rd one. It comes out in August, and I just read the synopsis, and this one I feel like has, the synopsis intrigues me. We'll see about execution, you know. Those are the 7 books I read this month. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below. And if you have any recommendations, I'd appreciate that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.